there's a lot of hubbub now about this thing called fake news. You know, it started back around the election, and the idea was that Donald Trump was pushing ideas and information into the media that were not real, and there is something genuinely true about that. There are on some Reddit sites people just inventing things out of whole cloth. It's sort of the War of the Worlds, if you remember that radio program, where you invent this event and then you create enough noise about it and people think it's real. And there's a genuine truth to that. I mean, there are those things. There always have been. It's nothing new. People try to sell papers and sell stories and sell things. There's just more opportunities for it because you have the internet and social media, so anybody can put out something that looks fairly realistic, either in text or in picture or video or something, and then you can go, oh my gosh, it really is a slug 16 foot long attacking a local town in Iowa or something. And so there are those things. I don't mean to diminish about that, but unfortunately the term has expanded in its application now, and they're using about all kinds of things. In the mainstream press, they're not actually concerned about whether someone thinks a slug is attacking Iowa or whether, I don't know, some conspiracy theory. There's millions of them. What they're concerned about is people that disagree with them about a news story. So the one I've been seeing a lot, of course, is the idea of the CBO's grading of the Republicans' healthcare plan. And CNN, news anchors pounding the table. We have to end this fake news as fake news. So if you have a story that says something different than what they think, the media thinks, or the CNN thinks, then it's fake news. And if you agree with CNN, then it's real news. And why is that? I think we all instinctively know that a lot of what is being called fake news is not fake. At the same time, there's a narrative that comes out of, say, CNN or Fox or MSNBC, and they tell a story about, let's say, a healthcare bill and whether it's going to keep people on health care, or they're going to lose health insurance, or Obama saying you won't lose your doctor, and well, technically you didn't because so there's all these theories about what'll happen. Let's say, let's just use the example of the healthcare bill. When the ACA was passed, theories about what would happen, and many of those theories are wrong. One of my favorites, and this isn't anything to do with the healthcare bill, was back during the invasion of Iraq under Bush. When they went into Baghdad, I remember watching the news, and there were these stories from, I forget who it was, embassy at the time, but all of these predictions about what would happen when they get in the street-to-street fighting is going to be horrible. There's going to be massive casualties. And I remember, I think it was whatever I was watching, NBC or whatever, would sort of post what they thought the casualties were going to be like. It's going to cost this many people and this many people and this many dead. And then they took Baghdad, and there were just a pittance of casualties. And there was never a correction. They can go back and say, well, it looks like we were wrong about that. Sorry to terrify everybody that you were going to lose your son in Baghdad, when actually it was much less than we thought. No one corrected it. Now let's use that for an example. When they predicted what would happen in Baghdad, was that fake news? I mean, it's fake because it turned out to be incorrect. It turned out to be inaccurate. Or when Obama said you can keep your health care plan, was that in fact itself fake news? Because it didn't happen. It's a good. So why is that considered news, even though it was wrong? And so let's look at now. When the Republicans say, well, we're going to pass this health care bill and the CBO, and so it says 22 million people are going to be kicked off, and the Republicans say, no, that's not going to happen. Is one of these fake news or not? And the reason is we're misusing the term fake news. It's inaccurate eventually, or the prediction was wrong, but that doesn't make it fake, right? I mean, so much of what we're trying to do in the news media, so much of what we're trying to write about are things that no one truly knows about. I mean, will it happen? Won't it happen? Here's the point. These things aren't fake. And we've got to stop applying the term where it doesn't belong. Fake is when, and this goes back to Bush too. Bush lied, people died. Bush never lied. Sorry to say, Bush never lied. He looked at the data and he made a prediction about what was true. Lying or fake means it's wrong, and then you do the opposite. I know a slug is not attacking Iowa, but I'm going to say it anyway. The mainstream media did not know there were going to be low casualties in Baghdad and then lie about it. They predicted. And so here's the point. So much of what we're calling fake news is really the fact that you're making a prediction based on your theory and your thinking and your information, and that's a report you'll make. We believe this will happen, and you're fully convinced of it. The Democrats and the CNN are fully convinced that 22 million people will fall off of health insurance with the passage of the Republican bill. Republicans are fully convinced that won't happen. And because you believe one of these and other doesn't make one of them fake news. I think what we need actually to help us in this moment is David Hume. We need David Hume desperately to help us. David Hume pointed out, for whatever reason, that in fact, causality, what one thing causes another thing, is really unknown to humanity. We guess at why something happens. We think if we do this, something else will occur. If we pass this bill, causally this will happen, and then this will happen, and sooner or later 22 people will fall off the health insurance. That's a prediction based on causality, but here's what David Hume argues. We don't know causality. Causality is never observed. It's only theorized. And this is the most important thing to keep in mind when it comes to all of this stuff. Most of what people are selling as news is a theory about, hey, I think if this happens, this will, and these are all causes, this will cause this will cause this, and then finally this will be the result. But causal theories are only just theories. They're not lies. I mean, if I think that this will cause that will lead to finally 22 million people falling off, well, that's my prediction, and I'm on a theory. But it turns out most of our theories are incorrect. They're missing something. They don't handle the true complexity of any situation. How many people make what decisions based on healthcare? Who could know that? Hey, you have to guess because you got to pass legislation based on a guess. But don't think that because someone guesses this or makes some calculation theoretically, that if they say something theoretically it disagrees with you, somehow they're fake news and you're real news. I mean, the point is, so much of what we're trying to guess at is really just theoretical. And the causality, the cause and effect that leads us from our assumption to the result, is rarely obvious. I mean, almost anything we do in politics and economics is unpredictable to some degree or another. I mean, every time we pass a bill to deal with things like poverty or deal with things like unemployment, we're never quite sure if it's going to work. And sometimes it does work, and rarely it works the way we think it does. So rather than having the hubris to believe that I know exactly what's going to happen if this bill gets passed or if we do this, and then call everyone else fake news, that is mistaken and dangerous, because then you're saying that I'm the only one that understands and everyone else is wrong. And it turns out, let me tell you something, here's my concern. These people that run around saying everyone else is fake news, give them the reins for a minute and let them apply their rules and theories. And their theories will be wrong too, because all theories are at some point. And then what? Everyone disagrees with them as fake news? Listen, we have to be willing to be critical about the way we think through and interpret these things. So listen to David Hume, understand that theories of causality are always going to be inaccurate. And stop calling them fake news and just say, that's a different theory. I disagree. And then maybe we can actually be open to listening to people we disagree with rather than simply shutting them up and calling them fake.